for this project, I'm starting out with some hardbound books. Now, I found these at the thrift store. These were $2.99 each. Although there are places online that you can get hardback books for relatively cheap, for about $1 a piece. And condition doesn't really matter because we're going to age them, so the poorer the condition, almost the better. So I would just look for something that's nice and thick. This is 800 pages long. I chose this book just because it was one that didn't look too interesting, so I didn't feel like I was doing anything wrong by painting it. So then once I take this book jacket off, I can discard this. I don't need this portion anymore. And I'm going to take my plain bound book here, and this is where I'm going to start adding molds to it. So I take a modeling material. This one is by Redesign with Prima, and I will cast it into molds. They offer a variety of silicone molds. I've got a whole bunch out here on my table. It's kind of a mess. So, for example, what's a good one? I'll take this floral here. I can take a piece of the modeling material. It's just like a Play-Doh almost, and it air dries, so I can press it into the mold. I will use my fingers and press firmly. On the larger ones, I use the palm of my hand, and then if you rub it against the silicone, the excess pieces of the modeling material will come out, and I just stick those back onto the block. They can be reused again later. Okay, so once my back is nice and flat, I've got nice clean edges along the edges of my silicone. I can take, and these are flexible molds, so it will pop. Will pop out, and it's not too flexible. So now I've got a nice floral mold that I can add to my book. So from there, I take the molds that I've made, and these are some that I've already got made, and I will place them onto my book, however, in any design that I think looks nice. I usually will try to kind of layer them, so I'm hiding. You can't tell that they're all these piecemeal together, basically. So that's probably a little much. Let's see if I can move this, and you can kind of play with whatever design or pattern you like till you come up with one you want. And then I used E6000, which is an all-purpose adhesive. My tube has seen better days. But I use E6000 and attach these to the book. So I'm going to move this one to the side. I'll come back to it and finish that one up later. And this is one here that I've already got done. This is more of a floral pattern. And I took a whole bunch of different molds. So I used a keyhole so it kind of looks like a fake, maybe a diary. And then I created a binding on this side, wrapped these here. So it looks like a bound book. So once I've got all my molds attached, I'm going to take my Dixie Belle paint. This is Dixie Belle paint in cotton. And I'm just going to put a layer of paint onto this book and over my moldings. So I'm using the Dixie Belle brush, the Dixie Belle Mini, and I'm going to go nice and heavy on the paint. I actually use a little bit of my paint to kind of dig into the crevices of this mold and cover up any gaps that happen when you glue it down. There's a little one right there. The little gap inside my keyhole is another one. So I want to make sure I'm getting in all these crevices some paint in there. So I'm using a chalk mineral paint for this. Dixie Belle's a chalk mineral paint. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to watercolor over the top of these, and the chalk mineral paint is porous, so the watercolor paint will actually soak into the chalk paint and give me nice saturated color over the chalk mineral paint as my base. So I am paying attention to my brush strokes. I don't want it to be too sloppy, but making sure I get nice coverage. So when I come back to this, we will have a coat of paint on here. It will be nice and dry, and we can start with our watercolors. Okay, so I have this book that I made. This is the book we did yesterday on our video, and I've added a series of molds to the cover. And then I added a coat of Dixie Belle chalk mineral paint in cotton, which is this nice creamy white color. And I did the paint with a little bit of texture in it. And so you can see I started right here. I'm going now with my Arteza. These are their watercolor brush pens. And I'm going to use a series of colors to add some color to these flower molds that are on the cover of my book. So this is a technique that can translate easily to a furniture piece or any a frame or anything you want to add these decorative molds to. And then you can use the watercolors to add this beautiful color effect and get genuine 3D watercolor flowers with the Arteza watercolor pens. So I'm going to go ahead and get started painting this book. I'm starting with my greens for my the greens on my floral, and I will also be using the Arteza. These are their water brushes, and I just have a couple different brush tips out. These come in a pack of 6, and I'm going to use these for where I want to liquefy the watercolor and move it about. So I'll give you an example right here. I can take this water pen and I can move the color from my watercolor brush. So these two work great in combination, and then I'll give you a close-up there. And it finds the texture on my molds and adds a little bit of soft color to that. So I'm just using a combination of colors, and then between the water brush pens and then the watercolor brushes, I will get beautiful realistic looking florals on here. The chalk paint is porous, and so the watercolors soak right into this chalk paint. It's a great base for adding the watercolors on top of. And it's not overbearing color, it's just going to be a very soft, faint color on my molds. This color here is olive green, and I really like this for my leafy greens. It's a really nice shade of deep green. So these have a nice realistic brush tip, and so I'm able to just brush feather this watercolor in to the crevices on my mold and give these leaves some realistic looking texture. This is a crocodile green, which is a slightly more yellow shade, but it mixes in nicely with that olive. The watercolor brush pens are a really good tool for people who are not super comfortable with watercolors. They give you your tool and your watercolor all in one. I'm adding a little bit of yellow because no leaf is just one straight shade of green. So I'm going to add a little bit of yellow into these, just some slight veining. And then I will come through and I'm going to age this book using Dixie Dirt, which is a powdered product, an aging dust, and I will use it around the edges of these florals to age slightly around these once I've got my colors all laid out. And then I can seal this. Can you go grab that wax for me? I can seal this with Easy Peasy Spray Wax, which is just a spray that will go over the top and add a nice protective coating over my book. It will seal my watercolors and it will seal my chalk paint on there, my Dixie Belle paint. So I'm just alternating between yellows and greens in kind of a random order. My watercolors have soaked into my chalk paint, and so I'm able to layer them on top of each other. Really pretty watercolor effect. I'm doing this on top of molds. You could absolutely do this with a freehand painting on a furniture piece or anything that you use your chalk paint on. Again, because it's got that nice porous surface, the watercolors just soak right into it, and it gives it nice stain power. This is just raw paint, it's not sealed. My paint was not sealed before I started painting on here. I'm going to come back with a little bit of darker colors. I'm thinking some shade of brown. This one's called Camera. Let's try this out. I used these watercolor pens once before just to get a feel for them. I just did a little sketch of a cherry blossom and painted that, but just to get comfortable with them. Other than that, I've not really used them, but I can see that they're very beginner friendly. And I have the set of 48 here. They also come in larger sets, but this is a nice variety of colors. So I'm really liking how this screen looks, and I'm going to give you a close-up shot there. You can see all the different colors of green and yellow that I've got in those leaves. Feather in with a really light hand just to give some veining to these And then I'm going to blend that in a little bit with a lighter color. The watercolors are nice because you can put them on top of each other and then just kind of blend each other out. I actually love doing watercolors on paper. And a bit of my darker green. A little bit of kind of shade where there would be shadowing effects on here. I can also add the shadowing effect with the Dixie Dirt, the aging dust when I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and